Dean,
Yes, hi, Ken.
hi, just FYI, there were 2 notifications for today. And for whatever reason, the first link didn't work, but the second one did.
Okay, I will investigate. I won't be able to investigate just a second, but Nora and I will try to troubleshoot that.
Yeah, if you have a calendar invite, it should say updated version.
So we have a quorum at the moment, but I do worry a tad when it comes to voting if anyone has to recuse themselves. But we technically can get started with the folks that we have. I don't know that I am missing anyone yet. Brad is not here. He usually lets me know. And
I can check.
Yeah,
I can text him.
And Christine said she would run a little late, perhaps, because she had to walk a child to school or something like that.
I sent Brad a text just to see.
Okay. And Brent, I know, has some added duties. But
Brad is going to enter the meeting soon.
oh, okay. But yes, that's great. But Brent has not been in touch lately.
Morrisville, Brent, or?
Well, no, not Morrisville, Brent. Now Fairfax, formerly
Now Fairfax. Right. Keep up with the Brents.
Right. I don't know if it's quite like keeping up with the Kardashians, although I don't know anything about that. And Nora, since I can see you there, are you able to get to the quorum tracker, and are you keeping track of the other folks? Thanks. Okay. Kim Greaves. Who's Kim Greaves? Oh, and here's Christine.
Did you hear that, Dean?
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh,
did you
okay.
hear what I just said?
No, I didn't, but maybe that was you who's in the process of
Yeah,
changing.
pardon me. I have a town email or Zoom account, and sometimes I come up as the town clerk. So I've just renamed myself.
Okay, excellent. Well, Peter, again, there is a quorum. There are 6, 5 reps, 1 alternate. That's Remy, who's counting for Aaron today, who couldn't be with us. And that's more than enough to get things rolling if you would like to do that.
Okay, we'll bring this meeting to order. And bear with me. I was just telling Dean, our whole house is sick with various ailments, and I'm going to try to get through this. So let's see the agenda. So are there, should we do welcome and introductions? Are the people here that we normally aren't, or members of the public? Or is it the usual suspects?
I think it's usual folks, although perhaps Remy has not been here for a while. As I said, he is an alternate. So I don't know. Remy, have you introduced yourself lately?
I don't think so. I'm happy to do a quick intro. Remy Kratol. I'm the Northern Vermont Conservation Manager with Vermont River Conservancy, serving as an alternate for Aaron today, who wasn't able to join.
All right. All right. Well, I think, other than that, we should just jump to, I guess, the meeting protocols. And I think I have them up here. Oh, thanks, Dean. So yeah, let's run over these real quick. Introductions of all participants at each meeting, which kind of did. And as possible, BIC members should have in their Zoom name title the following: name, organization, voting or alternate, and pronouns if desired. BIC members are expected to have cameras turned on during the entirety of the meeting as technically possible. BIC members are expected to stay focused, avoid multitasking, and follow the guidance of: if you wouldn't do something in an in-person meeting, don't do it in the virtual meeting. BIC members will use the raise hand function on Zoom to indicate a request to speak. Come off mute. This is an effort to make sure we are all heard in turn. All members will stay muted until called upon. If needed, quiz staff may mute participants to avoid background noise. And any comments made in the chat will be read out loud at the appropriate time by the quiz staff in full for public record. And that's that. Let's go to the agenda at hand. Has everyone had time to go through the agenda? Would anyone want to make any edits to it?
Peter, if I may just interject, I was going to say that depending on how things go today, it might be of greater interest to the group to have the discussion of project sharing, if people are able or willing to do that ahead of training. There are a couple of different reasons for that, one of which is that Nora is going to have to leave this meeting early, and I had anticipated she might talk about the site access agreement, which was something she was going to address back in December. Anyway, it just may be a higher priority, so you could just be flexible. I'm not actually sure how long the discussion of the application will take and whether or not there'll be ample time or whether there won't be. But anyway, I just wanted to suggest that possibility.
Well, I'm completely open to it. I don't know if this requires any sort of motion or not, or just general agreement.
I think you could handle it with general agreement when you get to that point.
Okay.
After the discussion of the application, however long that is going to take, and I'm not sure.
Oh wait, so to be clear, you want to do project sharing before the obligation conversation or immediately after?
Dean, you're muted.
Oh,
sorry about that. Item 9 is really the one that will determine, and basically I think at this point I might ask Megan, are you hoping to discuss things, or are the sponsors of this application looking for more time? And I apologize if you messaged me or sent an email that I haven't seen.
I have some questions for you, Dean. So I think the answer is we need more time and perhaps more one-on-one time with you in particular. about it.
Okay, and so what that would mean, as I see things, is that there will be limited discussion of item 9, which is the project that was discussed back in December, which is going to mean that there's a lot of time on the agenda to discuss both training and project sharing. And I think it's really just up to the group whether or not you want to start talking about project sharing before you do any conversation about training.
I'm good either way, but who was that?
Dean, if you're talking about the training about site access agreements and having me do that, I think I told you yesterday, but I have to leave at 9:30, so I'm not sure there will be enough time for that.
Okay, thank you, Nora.
Well, it sounds like maybe we should just leave things as is then, or have the training time start before anything else. Before
Well, Nora could, well, if I suppose that the agenda should be approved so that we take care of
Yeah.
that agenda item. And then
Yeah.
when we get to the discussion of item 9, it's going to be very brief because Megan has indicated that they would like more time for discussion. And then that will clear the decks for training. And if we are before 9:30, then Nora might be able to speak to that right then. Or you can pass over that to go into discussion of project sharing.
All right, well, let's just, I guess, move along then. So do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as is?
So moved. This is Lauren.
Hey, Lauren, I hear Lauren making a motion. Do I hear a second?
I can second that, Ken.
Okay, Ken, thank you. Seconded. All in favor of approving today's agenda, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, then it's a go. So go to the minutes. There's no public comments, I assume. Okay. Yep. Has everyone had a chance to look through today's, or sorry, not the agenda, but the meeting notes from last meeting? All right. Do I hear a motion to approve the meeting notes?
I'll go ahead and make a motion for the meeting notes.
Who was that?
It was Brent.
Okay, Brent. Hi, Brent. Brent has made a motion. Do I hear a second? Don't be shy.
Richard has his hand up. I don't know if that's to second or
Yeah.
if it's to ask a question. And given his alternate role, I would say perhaps if someone else could second, because he's not in a voting position today yet.
Is there a comment he wants to make, perhaps?
That's what I'm wondering.
Yes, there is a comment.
All right.
I don't mean to be picky about pronouns, but I'm listed as she. And I'd prefer that to be changed to he.
Okay, so noted. All right, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes with that edit that was just mentioned for pronouns?
I can first that motion or second the other motion, whatever you need.
We'll do first and second again. So Lauren is first.
Okay.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second, Megan.
All right, Megan, thank you. I hear a second on that. All in favor of approving the minutes from last meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, and Brad Holden abstaining. I wasn't at the meeting.
Okay. I hear an abstention from Brad. Any nays? All right, minutes have been approved. All right, public comment now. That's right. I don't think there's anyone in the public So Dean, I don't think we need to go through that. Report on budget adjustments.
There is in fact one of those.
All right.
So if I may, I'm hoping people can see the slide that has a summary related to that. Just to remind folks, there is a policy that was adopted by the Basin Council that creates a process for amending budgets. And when the size of the request is small, it can be handled administratively. So a request to amend a budget where the request is up to 10% can be done by the staff. And that's the situation that we're in. And the policy also says that when a request is made and if it's approved by the staff, it just gets reported at the next meeting of the council. And so this is that next meeting. Back on January 16th, I received a request from the Lamoille County Planning Commission regarding the project called the Vermont Studio Center floodplain project. They asked for an additional $3,500 because the type of cultural resource review that their project will require is going to be more extensive than was originally anticipated. I got that request. I have approved it, and we're in the process of creating the task order amendment that will provide those additional funds. So that's the report. That's the agenda item. If there are questions, I can answer them. Otherwise, you can just continue rolling along.
And Dean, could I just add one thing?
Sure.
Just for a little bit more background on this request, we received, we did our preliminary review with the Vermont Historic Preservation Division, and we received a comment back saying, because this area had been flagged essentially as an archaeologically sensitive area in the past from past, historic building and those type studies, they're requiring us to do a phase 1 archaeological investigation. And the budget adjustment and the cost of those is based off of real life projects that we've done recently. So typically they've cost around $6,000, which is why we've requested just an additional $3,500, because originally we only had $2,500 in for a very basic archaeological resource assessment.
And if there are no questions, then Mr. Chair, I can move to the next item.
Sorry, I was on mute again. Yeah, let's move on, I guess. And thanks for the info, Megan. Our review application, is that happening?
It appears that it's not going to be discussed further today. And I guess just subject to confirmation from Megan that there isn't anything that she, or I don't know if Mike is here, I don't see him. If there's nothing more that they want to say, yeah, she's raising her hand, so I would turn things over to her.
Yeah, so I think like overall, we'll somewhat table this discussion, but I think, Dean, it might be helpful for the council as a whole if they kind of understand the limitations to a partial award in terms of not being able to really match any reporting, any funds from other reporting agencies like DEC or like Champlain Basin Program. And then my other question related to that, which maybe I'll just ask now so that everybody's informed at the same time, is there's a difference between leveraging funds and matching funds. Does it make any difference if you're saying you're leveraging funds, like say leveraging QUIS funds or leveraging Lake Champlain Basin funds versus actually matching funds and actually tracking it as matched? Does that make any difference in the scenario?
I think not, because with QUIS funds, there is no match requirement. And as I've said to some folks on occasion, using or listing money as match actually complicates things. But I think the answer to your question is that it doesn't make a difference because there is no match requirement. And so there's no meeting match, there's no over meeting match or anything like that.
Okay. Thanks.
Dean, based on what you just said, so I know I've put match in some of our grants, and I mean, was it really even necessary? Could I have just at sort of count as leverage, as Megan was saying, and not create more paperwork?
I sense that people in some organizations have a practice of doing things that way because it helps with the calculation of the allowed indirect rate. That's the incentive
Yeah.
that programs like the Basin program, I think, and others create for organization. But there's really no such. There's nothing about the QUISP funding that asks for that.
Okay. So I mean, we do use that, like as you said, indirect over or overhead, right, for match. But we don't necessarily. We can do that in house. We don't necessarily have to bring it up and make more paperwork for you, or should we do it just to be open and honest about our paperwork? Like list it with you.
Well, ideally, and this may be something that I need to think about a little bit more before
Okay.
I answer, but I would just say it's really not necessary from the standpoint of QUISP funding. But
Okay.
yeah, and I think what we should have is a conversation, maybe QUISP to organization, because every organization is different, about their rates and what rates they include and what the basis for their rates that's in the budgets. Yeah, how that rate is built, and I think address to the problem that way is best possible.
Okay. Enough said for now. All right. So, I mean, is there any further comments about this, or should we just move along?
It appears that
Yeah, it
you
doesn't
can
seem to
move
be.
on.
Okay.
And I think in fairness to Nora, I don't know that it's fair to give her only 7 minutes to talk about operations and maintenance. So maybe
Yeah.
that can be put aside. There are some other things that could be presented as part of a training discussion. Cliff is here. He has some material he could share, but I think I might suggest that someone just consider making a motion to pause the discussion of training time if someone is ready to do project sharing.
Nora, do you have any comments on that? Seeing it, so you were going to bring it up. Just want to. Is it all right?
Yeah, I think I probably agree with Dean that maybe it's better to save for another day. I have to leave in 7 minutes, so I'm not sure I can
Okay.
get through it all.
We apologize for that. Okay. Do I hear a motion to table the discussion on training for another time and move on to the next agenda item?
So moved.
All right, Brad. Here, Brad Holden's made one motion. Do I hear a second?
I can second it, Ken.
Okay, Ken, thank you. All in favor of moving on to the next agenda item and tabling the discussion for training for next time, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed, say nay. Okay. Project sharing it is. So I don't have presentations, but I have documents I can bring up if you want me to go and discuss our projects, Dean, or I can wait for other projects to be described if other people are ready to do so.
I would say that if you are ready to go, you could certainly start. I know that Sarah has well, initially she had hoped to be here at the beginning of the meeting, but then she informed me she would be arriving after 10, I think. Unless Brent is coming to this meeting prepared to do that, I might suggest you get things started.
Okay. Brent, did you have anything you wanted to update us on?
He hasn't been around for that project, so it might be something I don't expect him to
Okay.
do a presentation on, but since he's here, I just wanted to acknowledge that maybe
Yep.
maybe he got the assignment.
Okay. Well, I can go through what I've done. Do you want me to talk about projects that have been completed or all the projects that are just current and completed?
Well, in other basin councils where this kind of agenda item has been included, it's been, I think, more projects that have reached a completion stage or are are near completion. But I think it's really about helping each other understand like what's the effort that this process takes, and so that could include you talking about a project that's still underway.
Okay.
I think it's
All right.
really up to you and the group.
I'll play by ear here. And I'll just, I guess, need to be able to share the screen if it isn't already there.
I think you should be able to share.
All right. Let's see. So, okay, let me go back a ways. Sorry, I got lots of things up here. How do I scroll back? Okay, so I'll go over at least a couple ones that we have completed. So in Hyde Park, we got some money from QUISP to go into preliminary design for stormwater runoff off of Church Street in Hyde Park Village. And this is part of a larger sort of scale project where they're calling it net zero in Hyde Park, which they want to contain any kind of sediment runoff downstream to the Lamoille watershed in an entirety, which is quite a grandiose wish. But we started it with this particular preliminary design. Let me just go to some of the numbers. This was, not inexpensive. And, looking at what the current, that hasn't really changed much from when we did the preliminary design. About the annual P reduction was not that high. I know this was one of the early projects that were kind of accepted just because we were trying to get projects going. So I'm not entirely certain if I want to continue with this line of funding moving forward, but we're going to act as if for the moment. And we still need to go to final design and whatnot. So maybe when we are looking into the numbers, maybe they'll change a little bit when we apply for that as far as annual P reduction. But ultimately, what this, when implemented, it would be an sub-storage unit with that would capture sediment running off from Church Street to the post office. So we partnered with the post office, the village, and the town on this, and looking to, keep going forward with it in some form, and hopefully funded by someone. So, I'll leave it open if anyone has any questions. That's pretty much all I'm going to say about that project.
Can I ask where the river is in reference to the print that you have up?
Yeah. So Village, I don't know if you're familiar with the Village of Hyde Park. It's kind of on a hill. It's a lot of sand, so it's really easy to install these subsurface infiltration chambers because it actually does the work. And this, it's probably a good, I'd say, a mile and a half away from the main stem of the Lamoille River. But it all flows downhill into an area people refer to as 10 Bends, where we're also doing other floodplain projects. So it's sort of, it is one piece of many things that we're trying to accomplish in Hyde Park right now. Including we did apply for, we're going to apply for hazard mitigation funds for a floodplain restoration work that's downstream of this, quote unquote downstream, as in the drainage area. But yeah, it's fairly distant, but it definitely, you know, the stormwater from Hyde Park impacts that floodplain pretty significantly. Okay, I can keep moving unless there's other questions. So the other project we completed was this last spring, 3.5 acres of trees. Again, down at the 10 Bends area I was just referring to. So there's 10 Bends Road and it goes over the Lamoille River. And there's area north and south of it, which we planted with 3.5 acres of trees. And this one looked a little bit more promising as far as kilograms and the price ticket on it. So I'll just bring up some photos, make it a little bit easier to understand. So, you know, the floods really inundated a pretty large section of this area. And you can see here, you know, essentially it became unusable for the farm that was leasing it to hay. And so we were able to get sort of an average of 100-foot buffer. At one point, it's like 200 feet. So it was really cool for that reason. And we got lots of help from the community, the people who live there. So we made this plan really quick because there was a lot of people. It took about a couple of days, and I even had some of the Lamoille high school kids come and do the northern side of it. So there's South Field, and there was a North Field. I don't know if I have photos of the North Field. Oh yeah, there we go. So we're working on the north side with the high school students. And if it went fairly successfully, easy digging, you know, very sandy, loamy soil. And in some ways, you know, I can't wait to see what the survival rate is when I come back next year. Some of this area was pretty much a lot of sand. And the good part of that is easy planting and a less sort of competition with the canary grass and other grasses that grow there. So we're hoping that maybe they'll get a head start. We kept them watered for a week or so afterwards, but it was actually, the timing was great. We had a lot of rain. And so far I've walked down there about 2 or 3 times this year, and things look like they're doing okay, but you really can't tell until the season starts up again and you see them bud out. But yeah, a lot of help. That was a lot of fun. And at least I think we had about up to 20 varieties of plant species, trees. So we shall see.
Brad, this is Ken. Do you know if using solar tubes were discussed at all around the plants?
No, they weren't. I mean, they could have, I suppose, but you know, we just went ahead and, you know, we'll check on the maintenance aspect next year. Maybe that will be something that will come up if we think it maybe help.
Peter, I'll just jump in and say that this is the first completed project for the Basin Council implementation project, and
Right.
it is going to be it is somewhat of the reason Nora is going to be addressing you at some point to talk about operation and maintenance, because operation and maintenance expenses are eligible for funding through the Clean Water Fund, through the
This is
formula
great.
funds. And so this is going to be a learning opportunity for all of us. And when you mentioned the survival rates, yes, that's the sort of thing that getting a good handle on for these formula funded projects is going to go a long way towards helping us know what to anticipate, what the costs will be. And just in terms of timeline, as Nora would have said, there's a milestone that is the 1-year anniversary. And I think, Peter, you got that done It was
Uh,
Memorial Day weekend, right? Or something like that?
I had 2 plannings going on, so I'm trying to remember. It was a couple planning sessions in May.
Yeah.
I think we got done well before Memorial Day. The other farm that we were doing wasn't finished till later on.
Okay.
That was Valley Green. That's a different grant.
Yeah. So coming up in May is when
Yeah.
there will need to be some things that happen as far as operations and maintenance, an inspection and verification and all of that kind of stuff that we will be hearing more about. That is
Yeah. I look forward to it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you do, because it's a whole process unto itself, and
Yeah.
as complicated as the process of getting the funds to build the project is, I don't think that the operation and maintenance phase is going to be really any less complicated, but let's cross our fingers.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it will be. I just started to take for granted, and that's okay. We'll work through it. Oh yeah. So this was the first one that we finished, and I guess the first one you're saying that the council funded was done. Is that correct?
If I'm remembering correctly, it is the first implementation project
Okay.
that was completed by the council. Other projects have been completed, but they weren't implementation projects.
Right.
That kick us off into this realm of, okay, how do we handle all of this O&M related funding? So
Yeah.
you're the test vehicle for that.
Oh, great. All right. Yeah, this is where you can find out all the mistakes that are made. So we can be the guinea pig. I know that worked out pretty well, the watershed action plans, because we were on the first of those as well. And so I was able to discover a lot of things we could have done better on that. And I don't mind being that sort of example, because then, we can work from it, and all the other districts and watershed organizations can learn. So I don't mind. So yeah, those are the 2 that were completed. I can go briefly over ones that are in the works. Rocky Woods. So this is sort of the other side. This is going into Lamoille watershed via Elmore. And I know the Winooski Basin is working on the other side, if I'm not mistaken. Dan, correct? Or is that the Friends of the Winooski? I can't remember which. It's the district or the.
We have some strategic wood addition in Elmore, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's what you're talking about. Then yeah,
The
then that
Rocky
would
Woods is
be,
also
I think
part of
it's right
Rocky
around
Woods.
here.
Yeah, because this tributary flows into. Go ahead.
No, I'm trying to remember, because that
I think
I
it's
don't know that we started
Friends.
it. I haven't looked at that
It's
project
the
in a
Friends,
while.
isn't it?
So
I think it's
Okay.
Friends.
Okay.
Friends
Well,
lands.
neither here nor there, but it's great that we're working on both sides of this watershed. And so this one is a strategic wood addition along various streams, Elmore Pond Brook tributaries specifically. And I'm looking forward to this. We were supposed to start this last season, but I think Red Start, they have their hands full, so they're trying to get a lot of work done. And so we pushed it off to this coming 2025 season. So there's a little more picture of some of the work that went into, what they used as far as incision and rates. I think the numbers were pretty high. Oh, where was that? For phosphorus reduction. And I know it's still a debate as to the efficacy of those calculations. But the, Stacy, the river scientist in our area, Stacy Pomeroy and Karen Bates, and everyone are working with us. Again, I feel like we're kind of a testing ground for this, as far as the effectiveness it will have. I mean, the real reason you're doing these strategic wood additions, it's not necessarily for phosphorus reduction, but it's, habitat and floodplain restoration, essentially. And I think the phosphorus sort of came out of this because of its, potentially high efficiency rate of reduction. So it's kind of nice. It seems to kind of cover all the bases. But again, this is the first time I've ever explored this kind of work, and I'm very fascinated with it, and hope to be out in the field with them next summer whenever it is that they decide to start installing. Let's see if I had any more information. Oh, there it is. Yeah, so here you go. 11.19 annual, and then over 15 lifespan of 167.8 kilograms. We'll see how these calculations continue to, hold up. But overall, I mean, I think it looks very promising. And then, unless anyone else has any questions, I'll just kind of go through the other two projects because the next two projects, we really haven't done much except doing some survey work. And if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and jump to them real quick so we can get through all of this. So West Loop, this is an area next to Elmore. This is on the west side of Elmore, Lake Elmore. It's a literal loop here, and it has a lot of issues with runoff. And so we're doing a preliminary design work to kind of look at sections of this road to see where there could be some stormwater treatment for the runoff. I know, Dean, you mentioned that there might be issues with DEC as far as road work in general. So depending on where that conversation goes, we could stress our work to be more of, stormwater implementation as far as runoff from road rather than actual road erosion work and drainage. And I think that will play into our design, if you get my understanding. So if we have a conversation with them saying that they're not interested in funding direct road work, then we can maybe do a workaround as far as where this design is going. Does that make sense?
You addressed me, but I see Karen's got her camera on, and I think she's
okay.
itching,
Karen, I want to hear from
to
you.
jump in.
So the latest interpretation from Claire or explanation is that, with any road, any stormwater off of road, it has to be addressed through the linear stormwater type project.
Yeah.
And that the calculation will always be, did the road meet? And if no, does it meet? And that's how you get the calculation. So if you have an adjacent plunge pool or infiltration or some sort of stormwater structure that's addressing that stormwater, the only phosphorus credit is going to be based on that road meeting or not meeting. And if a road meets, it doesn't get additional credit for then managing that stormwater. So
okay.
If you've got a house and a parking lot and like a small area of driveway, if that wanted to be treated as a stormwater project, it could be. The length of the driveway then, of course, it should be looked at, because the idea was we're really taking this from like an urban suburban landscape where it's fairly short driveways. And then the only other thing is if it's a river going through or under a road, then obviously that's not MRGP associated. That can be a river project by enhancing culvert size.
Okay. So to be clear, what could come out of this would be basically siloed projects as far as in terms of counting phosphorus credit.
Well, it would all be, you'd be doing, it would just be the MRGP for the most part, unless
Really?
you have a stream going through a culvert.
Okay.
And then that could be a river project. If you're taking, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll as we get deeper into this, because right now it's only been survey work, and they plan to do some more work this winter. We'll keep you close, so you can kind of help guide our hands. That would be great.
Happy to do that.
Excellent. This is the other road project. This is another one that's kind of, I have lots of questions too, Karen, sort of after the fact here. So the work we are suggesting doing here for a upper watershed road near Elmore is this work near a stream where we'd have a 2-tier sediment trap and other sediment trap on the other side as well. You know, I think we were able to get funding for this because we were not going to do any of the MRPG work that the town is supposed to do. And so we'd work closely with the town to make sure that they're doing whatever they're doing, but that would not be funded by this. We would only be funded for this off road work. So how does that translate to what you just said, Karen?
You don't get any additional work, any
Okay.
credit.
Okay.
So yeah. The MRGP criteria is met, there's one associated phosphorus reduction calculation.
All right. Well, the town would be getting that then. And so,
yeah,
you know, so we're funded for this through Clean Water Service Provider. So if we're not, I mean, is this something we should be thinking about tabling? I mean, if it's not going to, Dean, do you understand what's happening here?
Yeah, and that was the reason why I reached out to you to say that Maddie Yendo of our office, who was doing a comparable project in Grand Isle County, had learned a lot. She helped, I would argue, she helped get DEC to make crystal clear what its bottom line was as far as the calculation of credits for these kinds of projects. So we were flagging it, you know, in the last couple of months. But when we started this work, and this was a project that was funded in either round 1 or round 2, we did not know what the future held and how things would be calculated. And so, you know, an award won't be taken back, but these decisions by DC or interpretations of what the policy is are going to affect whether or not a project remains fundable or is attractive to be funded using the formula fund money.
Okay.
And
so finish, in other words, finish the final design and then we'll go from there.
Well, again, there hasn't been any discussion or consideration by the QuISP to take any money back that was awarded based on this DEC interpretation, because, you know, the interpretations, I find sometimes they evolve or policies change. And in fact, Karen didn't mention it. I know she's mentioned it in some other settings. There is a multi-year project that the Regional Planning Commission that I work for is involved in, that is focusing on the private roads piece. So not in this particular case, but on the private roads piece. And this whole question of calculation, what's the right measure? What's the right ruler to use when assessing essentially the performance of a road? And I get what DEC's, where they're coming from. DEC is juggling all of this stuff because they don't want to be accused of allowing double counting of phosphorus credits. At least that's I'm not looking for a response from anybody, but that's really a driver here, is that they have to be really careful that with all the modeling that they've done and all of these projects and approaches, that they don't end up allowing or facilitating the double counting of phosphorus credits.
Right.
And to add to that too, we have no methodology that allows us to calculate phosphorus reduction from stormwater if it's a treatment drain. So if the road work takes some of it out and then you put an infiltration basin or a trench to take some more out, there's no methodology for actually figuring out exactly what the phosphorus is that's removed from that second treatment.
That's interesting. So you can't do the linear equation for the road and then just add on to it a stormwater phosphorus count. That would be considered double counting, or
there's just no methodology. That and we and so it's also to be, as you know, Dean said, you don't want to double count, but the overall goal is we're taking a very structured way or process for approving projects so that it's more simplistic to do the calculation. So roads, you got a road problem, you use the linear road and use the MRGP process to get the phosphorus.
Okay.
If there's a gully downstream because of the outfall, then of course the gully can can obtain additional phosphorus. That's probably the projects that we could look at and talk about too.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll just keep waiting for updates and ticker tape.
Yeah, Peter, I don't know if you can see, there are a couple more hands, Megan and Brad.
Okay, no, I can't see it.
Yeah, I don't know who was first.
All right. Let me bring back I'll stop sharing because if that's all right, because I'm done. Okay. All right, where am I? Okay. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. Everything's a bit slow right now for me. Did Brad or Megan, which one of you, or Ken? Oh boy, all kinds of questions.
I think I had a question first, just to follow
Yeah.
up about that conversation. So I understand that you're trying to go above and beyond MRGP. I get that component of it. But it is a town road. And if your calculation for P reduction is all based on just meeting the MRGP, and you're using that for both the above and beyond calculation and the actual, and then like the town is using, that as well, and they're meeting MRGP, it still seems like a double counting situation to me. And this just makes me, because you're calculating the same way, and both the town can claim that and
So I think that Megan, to answer your
like
question, I
double
think that
counting
map is a little that I just showed is a little bit misleading. So the red line areas where the ditching was going, those were not included in our grant. That was going to be left to the town. So anything we calculate was just the stormwater treatment, from what I could gather from Fitzgerald Environmental. If I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think that's what we were trying to stay out of the road entirely with the grant. And so that map that I just showed was the red lines were road for town work that we were not going to be involved in.
So is your work, Peter, then out of the right of way? The town right of way of the road?
Yeah.
Okay. It just makes me think, I mean, this is a great project, and obviously I'm always supportive of you and the conservation district. But it makes me think back to when we had some other projects in the queue in the beginning stages around state roads that were kind of essentially dropped from the QUIS funding. So I just want to make sure that we're being consistent in our approach and kind of fair to everybody.
We were told clearly of that in the beginning. That's why we did all the work that's being funded is only for the work that is outside of the right of way or outside the road and above and beyond what the road work would be doing, what the town would be doing anyways.
Okay.
So those were separated, and I'm sorry that picture didn't really make that clear.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
But we have no way of calculating the phosphorus for that project, so
there you go.
Well, maybe another funding source.
Yeah, maybe.
Like Champlain Basin program.
Who's next, Ken or Brad?
Brad, I think.
Go ahead, Brad. You're muted.
Okay, for some reason, everybody disappeared, but can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so my first question is, so this is obviously a hydrologically connected MRGP segment. Is it not in compliance or is it compliant?
I believe they needed to do some upgrading of it, and it was on.
I just tried to look on the ANR site, and it's not it's not cooperating. But I didn't go on the MRGP site, but so my question is like, if this is producing sediment or runoff into the stream, that seems like the town's problem, because if it's coming from lack of ditches and proper sediment traps. I'm just trying to find the correlation of if you think that it's important to be addressed, why doesn't the town have it as a non-compliant segment?
So in my recollection, this is, we've been sitting on this for a year. The road won't require much to be up to standards, but we determined, and Fitzgerald Environmental, that it was important that the runoff, the excessive runoff, other than what they were doing to meet the MRGP standards, would be better, and it would. So yeah, that's a great question, Brad. It came up on our. This is one of the 5 projects that came up on our Lake Elmore watershed action plan, and it was determined that there was quite a bit of phosphorus and sediment runoff coming off that particular point of the road into that tributary. So it would be a tributary sort of work in a way. But at the same time, and it sounds counterintuitive, it sounded like they didn't need to do much to bring this road up to standard, to the basic sort of work that they do with drainage ditches and, contours of the road itself. So, now that you brought that up, it's kind of a head scratcher for, I'm starting to scratch my head about it now,
Yeah,
But
I mean,
it
we
was
have
determined
plenty
that
of
it was-
situations
Yeah.
like that. I think in particular, I just don't think, I kind of disagree that you just focus on MRGP. The town can work within its right of way, but oftentimes, and it may be trying to treat the stormwater on its right of way the best it can.
Yeah.
But there's certainly situations where when that stormwater gets out of the right of way and then encounters other situations, then it's not favorable. So I'm trying to wrap my head around how you can meld. Sure, the town's got this MRGP segment totally in compliance according to the matrix, but then it's obvious that it's doing other damage as the stormwater gets away from the right of way.
Yeah.
So I can address that quickly. So again, with CRIS funding, you're limited by what methodology do we have to calculate the phosphorus reduction. And in this situation, we don't have that calculation, our ability to calculate how, treating that stormwater runoff after it leaves the town infrastructure would, how it would result in phosphorus reduction, or what specific phosphorus reduction would be removed, or completed, addressed. Anyway, so there may be another funding source that out there that could do that work. But the other thing too is in a lot of these cases, I mean, if you have erosion and you see erosion coming from a town road, they may need to be addressing it under the MRGP anyway. So you'd have to go back to look at that. And then the only other thing that we talked about was, again, the gullies. If there is a gully that is then occurring or could occur, or, about to occur, then we could do some gully restoration or protection of that area, and get some phosphorus credit for that, because there is a stormwater road gully restoration project type and a methodology for calculating phosphorus reduction.
Well, this is good timing for this conversation, because we haven't really done anything yet, and I think when we do, we're going to meet with the town, meet with you, Karen, or whoever we need to bring in, so we can go forward with the correct, to finish the final design, whatever that now will be, so that will happen soon, because I want to have our plan set before, we get to spring, and the grant wraps up, I guess, next year, the end of this 25. So,
Are there any, just one last question, are there any culverts on this section, or it's just?
No, is it a culvert or a bridge? It's culvert. It's bridge, actually. That's yeah, and it's and it was determined to have a run, and there may be some gully, ripple erosion or something there. I haven't been out there in a long time, but this is all very good timing for this conversation, since we haven't really gone forward with anything yet. Thank you. Ken?
Yeah, being that a stream or river is involved, doesn't it defer to FFI for phosphorus reduction numbers?
Another good question. It's locations off the road, drainage, near the bridge, going into the river. I guess it's in the floodplain. I don't know, Karen, do you have any comments on that, what he just asked?
The FFI tool would be looking at really the stream channel and whether it's incised or not, and if there's ability to enhance floodplain connection between the stream channel and the floodplain, which could then also be related to the culvert size. But stormwater coming into that area, that wouldn't be something the FFI tool would be looking at, or the phosphorus associated with runoff.
I feel like we found the blind spot here.
Yeah.
You know, like literally. And, you know, I'd be interested to see how that evolves because, you know, here again, we're right in the middle of it.
Well, you know,
I have
the
a
thing,
tendency to do that.
yeah, the one thing to remember is that it's complicated. They have a
Yeah.
methodologies
Oh,
for
sure.
phosphorus, and we stick with those. And
Yeah.
they have a lot of, there is the opportunity to request from the division to look at methods and new methods. And that's why actually the down south, they're asking about gully restoration and having it apply to lands and that are a stormwater that comes from lands other than just in developed areas. They'd like to see gully restoration happen because there's runoff from agricultural landscape.
Yep. Yeah, I've always had a hard time getting my head wrapped around these distinctions. You know, gully erosion, we've done a lot of gully erosion work, right? In my mind, you know, obviously it's not, it's a natural resource concern. It's separated from stormwater runoff. And yet we've had gully erosions work with stormwater treatment before the gully. And then the gully erosion, it was all lumped into one grant, you know, for whatever it was. I think it was under stormwater, even though, yeah. So I just kind of, some of these distinctions they still kind of make me scratch my head sometimes. But no, I'm interested in moving forward with this and trying to figure out, you know, exactly what it is that we should be labeling it as, or what kind of funding we can get from where. And so, Karen, let's keep this conversation going. We'll next meeting we have, which hopefully is soon with the town, we could kind of maybe get closer to that answer.
Mm-hmm.
Remy?
Thanks, Peter. I was hoping to actually back up and get some of your thoughts on the riparian planting project that you just completed. I was curious, you know, since you're one of the first people to sort of go through this implementation process, I'm curious, like how the process kind of compared to some of the more traditional funding sources, like Woody Buffer Block Grant, Trees for Streams. And like, were there any challenges or like areas in which the QUISP or the Basin Water Quality Council could like improve that process? Or was it fairly streamlined, you know, compared to some of the other funding sources that you're, you know, aware of?
Okay, so yeah, my experience, this was the first grant I closed out, you know, and Dean, you can attest to this. It was a lot of back and forth because, you know, I was fairly unfamiliar with some of the reporting. You know, it's written out, but when you actually do it, like, oh, I didn't know I had to have this and this and this. So there's a lot more reporting with the QUISP. I noticed with the block grants we've had, they kind of cover the, you know, watershed organizations and districts from having to submit certain documentation and kind of assume, okay, we assume you have it, and if you get audited, it will come back and find it, you know. But with the QUISP, they're very forthright about making sure that we are submitting every little thing, you know, our hours to the T, the day that we worked, you know, the mileage, you know, all those things I wouldn't necessarily have to submit with a block grant or Trees for Stream grant. So it's sort of a two-edged sword in the sense that it's more work, but I'm kind of glad it was more work because now I feel like I've really covered our ass, so to speak, as far as everything that we've done. Sorry for the French there, you know, but it's just, so yeah, you know, I think I'll get used to the process as the next few, like I think the last time I submitted one, there was a little less back and forth, but then it's just a little more complicated. The reporting process is my general, and it's not a bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. So when you get to the point where you're going to be submitting, you're going to be like, oh my God, there's more documents than I've submitted before to other DEC projects. If that's a short enough answer.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions?
Doesn't seem that way, Peter.
Okay.
I
Since
don't, I don't know if anyone else has a project. I also am not sure I see Sarah. Don't see Sarah has joined.
all right. No, it doesn't look like it.
Brent
I mean, we could
Brent is
come
getting,
back if she does eventually join. You know.
well, Brent just put in the
Can
message.
get her real quick. Give me a moment. And I'll get.
Thanks, Brent.
What's happening?
Brent is going to get her.
Oh, okay.
He's in the same physical space.
Oh, okay. I'm. I guess I'll wait till she. I have to mute and go off screen for a little bit. I'll wait till she gets. Dean, what is next on the agenda?
Well, the next item on the agenda, I believe, was going to be updates. Let me double check here. Yes, the next item
All right, I got it.
was going to be updates, and I was going to share a couple of things about that. And I do.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think because I guess I will also say maybe I should wait for Sarah. This will be Sarah's last meeting as well, first she was a representative or member of the Basin Council, and then she became an alternate, but she is moving on from her position in the town of Fairfax and was appointed by the governor to serve on the statewide land use board and is pulling back from her involvement in several things. So this will be a chance for the group to wish her well, as well as hear from her about the project that she's completing as she's getting ready to go out the door. I believe her last day formally is tomorrow. So this is a busy time for her, no doubt. And I guess while I'm holding the floor here, there is an interim person who is I believe a native of Fairfax, who has some public sector experience, is going to be acting town manager through March or May or something. So I don't know if that person will be inclined to get involved in any way, shape, or form or not, but there will be a new person in that role.
Okay, Dean, I do have to be off screen and unable to talk for like 5 minutes. I'm just trying to time it.
Okay.
As Dean, as the president, I didn't want to like leave you all hanging.
Okay. Okay, so here she comes, because
okay, great.
That's her logo on the screen.
I'll be listening in, but yeah, okay. I'll wait till she's in.
And there's Sarah.
Hi, I apologize. I said that I had joined with the mic in front of it. And I apologize. I'm actually in my other meetings running over, but apologize, Dean.
Well, thank you. Thanks for taking the time.
So maybe just to expedite things and allow you to step away, Peter.
Yeah.
Peter has to step away. So Sarah, if you are in a position to give the folks a report on your project, you should be able to share screen if you have any things to share.
All right, I'll see you all in a bit.
All right, hopefully everybody can see that.
I can.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much. I apologize. It's my second to last day in Fairfax that this wound up being. So I'm in too many different places at once. But I'm so glad that we were able to wrap this up. So going back to 2020, the town of Fairfax worked with Northwest Regional Planning to develop a stormwater master plan. The stormwater master plan had 5 top priority sites in terms of being impactful to mostly areas within our village, which is situated right along the Lamoille River. You can see it in this lower bottom left-hand corner. Right sort of at the intersection of Chittenden County, Lamoille County, and Franklin County. What you see here in the middle of the screen is our school system. It's a K through 12 school system, Bellows Free Academy, Fairfax. And one of the 2 top stormwater sites to address were BFA East and BFA West. The BFA West, which is on the left-hand side of the screen as the previously permitted subsurface stormwater system, is something that BFA, as part of its expansion program and also the 3-acre rule, is doing over at the bus garage, which is an underground subsurface system, which is now in place and permitted. The other one, the BFA East, is this one in the bottom right-hand side of the screen along Hunt Street, right where it comes down and makes a sharp turn. This one was important to the town for multiple reasons. The BFA West will help the school achieve their phosphorus conditions and what have you as part of their state stormwater permit. But the BFA East, you can see there's an oxbow coming down to Millbrook right at the base of this bank. With the 2 most recent flooding events that we've had along the Lamoille, this is an area where we had bank fold conditions coming down and some velocity, and there is erosion at the toe of this bank where it takes a turn, and right off screen is our covered bridge. And so you have a bunch of water coming down through our village, really hammering at the toe of this bank and then taking a turn. And it was backing up from the Lamoille, just in terms of saturation point. This BFA East system will tackle the water and the runoff coming down from Hunt Street, as well as some of the watershed from the school. But it will also be able to help us address at some point we are going to need to do a structural solution for this bank. So I can walk you through some of the plans with this very briefly, but this is also going to be an underground system. And this will also fix some of our discharge points to Millbrook from here. I think where we've gotten to or been able to get through with this project has been to final design. It's roughly about a $40,000 project. We had construction oversight in this. We're not sure if we are going to go to construction at this point because unfortunately the way that we're looking at phosphorus statewide. Our engineer, Andres, from the watershed group, was able to say that we could make a very good nexus here, that we are through this, addressing this with a bigger project in terms of phosphorus loading. If we can stop some of the erosion that's happening along the bank and have this sort of be part of a larger project, we could probably validate that this is going to meet the phosphorus targets necessary. But in a standalone project, it might not. So I think navigating some of this with Dean about next steps is we're going to take a step back. We ran into some archaeology possibly with this. I haven't heard back yet. It's interesting, as part of this process, understood in the grant, we have to get a sign off from DHP in terms of archaeological sensitivity. All the schools in Act 250 site too. And so of course, if there is a archaeology or other historic sensitivities, before we could pull a permit to do this project, we would have to have that sort of bite at the apple through Act 250. But we are going to have to get a sign off before we can complete the grant. So that's just the fast forward where we're at with it. I think it's a great project. It would help us with this sort of larger problem that we have in terms of flooding, erosion, phosphorus, stormwater in the middle of our village, but has some logistical challenges. And I would welcome Dean's thoughts or any commentary that he has, but that's my very short version. And thank you so much for having an opportunity to be able to present this.
Quick thoughts. In response to Sarah, I would say that we've been in communication a lot, she and I and her consultant, in the last couple of months about this. So yeah, none of what she said is a surprise to me. And I think she's raised the issues that I would have raised if I was trying to give her a presentation. I was actually trading emails with Anders Chorizo before this meeting started. And I know he's going to be, I know he had another meeting, and I know he's going to be sending an update. I guess, just really focus on this possibility of coupling the work done so far with some additional work that, if it qualifies as a gully, could really materially affect and improve the phosphorus cost benefit. And so I'm optimistic and crossing my fingers that that could be a direction that this evolves in. It could be a situation where there's the need to spend a bit more money in order to get a bigger payoff later. I would say, though, is that this project was approved, it was awarded $75,000, and the costs so far have been substantially below that. So that's a plus. And I think we could end up thinking about this as there could be more work done without even the BOIC having to approve additional funds, because the amount of the original award was significantly higher than has been needed so far. So anyway, I'm optimistic, but I see Karen raising her hand, so I guess I'll just stop for now.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. It's exactly what I think makes sense, where you treat the stormwater, and then at the outfall, if there's erosion, enough erosion to say it's a gully, and you can do the calculation to get the phosphorus reduction from that gully, then and that's then enough to make it cost effective, then that's great. There's no, I mean, there wouldn't be any phosphorus reduction for stabilization of a huge bank like that. I think they're expecting that other monies stabilize road banks, not the Clean Water Fund, because it goes against anyway, it's not Clean Water Fund's responsibility to stabilize roads from river movement.
It's tough, because this is an intersection of all the things that you want to be proactive about before the road actually slides down the bank.
Right.
And
so there are not other sources for that, because that's that VTrans and Clean Water Fund people sort of made the decision that the Clean Water Funds wouldn't be used for this. So if there are no other sources out there, then you need to protect your road. But the gully, that could be like that perfect project. And so I would say, just send this to Stacy Pomeroy to say, is this something that could happen? Because she actually has to look at it in terms of how it might affect the stability of the other areas around it. But I don't think you need a lot more work to get a phosphorus credit, like okay from us, or okay to, the methodology that you use, that we could say okay, and a rough estimation.
yeah, it's really sort of unfortunate, because just my experience so far has been Fletcher Road fell into Millbrook. And so that is a class 2 road. And so we're going to be made 100% whole on that. In terms of being proactive, there appears to be no pot of fund source that we can go to for these funds. And it's not to be cynical, but if we let the whole thing fall in, we might be in a better funding position than if we were proactive. It's just been sort of frustrating.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's definitely something to bring to the Clean Water Board next year, then during the comment period, because we have to figure out how the money is going to be used. We can't fix everything. That's definitely a good thing to fix, but big picture is that where we put this money, and do we find other sources for stabilization of roads? Because it's going to be a bigger problem as climate change, continues. We need a funding source for that. I agree.
Could I just request for a future WIC meeting? I think it'd be really useful to get somebody from VTrans to explain how they prioritize and or fund or don't fund things. I think that like we just keep running into this head first over and over again, and it feels very amorphous to me. And I'm wondering if somebody would be willing to like explain their process to us just so we can navigate it better.
Joel Perigo.
Yeah, Lauren, I can offer to bring this up in a meeting that we are setting up with Joel in the next couple or few weeks.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for, Lauren. I've had meetings
I'd
with
rather
V-Trans
just
and I've
know
got
who
more
my
confused.
enemy is.
They're not enemies, this is confusing bureaucracy going on up there. Yeah.
So
Anyways, yeah, great.
I'd be happy to tune into a future meeting too. I apologize. This is sort of struck me as a lot of transition in a short period of time. And I was very happy to present this. I think the archaeology has been a little bit of a curveball too. And I apologize that my day has been sort of full. But these are important things because with Fletcher Road, we did have part of it actually slide into Millbrook. And it was one of those emergency things where you put the excavator down the brook and just try and like stabilize. And it would just seem to me to make so much more sense that, hey, we've actually thought this through. We want to be proactive and handle the stormwater. We want to see if maybe there's some more natural ways to like restabilize the bank, realizing that's in the middle of our village. That wouldn't this be a perfect project to just try and pull together different funding sources and have it be proactive versus waiting for something to happen. So thank you for the opportunity to present it. And I've got to run back, but if I have any other questions, I'm happy to take some.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your involvement with the Basin Council and helping us get it started.
Well, thank you. It's a great group. I've been missing tuning in, but hey, you have Brent, who is perfect, I'm so happy to be working with. I'm so sad that I'm leaving. Working with him, but I trust that I'll hear some good things moving forward. And you guys have a great challenge ahead of you, and I look forward to hearing more about it. So take care. I'm going to sign off, and we'll catch you guys later.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All righty then. So I assume we have no other presentations, project updates, in other words. So Dean, if you want to go on to the next agenda item and give us your updates, unless someone has something else to hear someone.
It sounded like
I just have a quick thing, but I'm sorry I keep getting interrupted. But I think, you know, what Karen said was it's kind of important that you take a situation like this and yeah, how do you, the Clean Water Fund monies aren't to stabilize, you know, a sudden and awful event on a highway, right? So the MRGP is a little more subtle than this situation. But I would like to learn more too about how, what are other funding sources when something like this situation that Sarah found herself in, and you know, what are options? So maybe somebody from V-Trans would be helpful.
Yeah, Brad, I will just reiterate that I've been typing it out the note to make sure that I don't forget to raise this question. And even if someone is not able to come from V-Trans right away, I've been involved with a project in the town of Montgomery, Longley Bridge Road, different basin, but it was a situation where the town had to take emergency action. The river was getting dangerously close to the road, and they were able to get some funding from, I believe it was 2 separate grants that were through LTA. So anyway, there may be some examples that I'm familiar with, and they're also, I don't know this Fletcher Road situation that Sarah mentioned. I don't know if that's germane, but we can definitely try to get this topic addressed at a meeting.
Well, she did mention class 2 highways, so there's federal dollars there involved with that classification.
Yeah, I will say that in this Montgomery project that I'm involved with, there were some Corps of Engineers issues, and that has made things a lot more complicated. But yeah, permitting is complicated with every project.
Yeah, so I've worked with V-Trans in the past, and not always, it hasn't always ended up in the, you know, an outcome that I liked, but you got to remember with V-Trans, it's very site specific, and they have certain agendas for certain sites that you may have tripped upon. And you know, so this would be a really good meeting to have, sort of be kind of like a, be aware of where you should and shouldn't go if you're near a highway, if you're thinking about doing a project. Because we had a stormwater master plan for Hyde Park done, and two of the highest ranked stormwater projects were basically denied us because of a V-Trans section of Route 15, and they wouldn't let us do the work outside of that right away. Or it came into the right of way, but they were like, no work on this road for the next 10 years. So they had some plan, you know, with that highway, but they were very kind of hush hush about what it was. So it was very, yeah. So it'd be good to have a meeting. I just hope it would go in the way that would be efficient for us. That's past experience, and I'm hoping it's a better one next time. In any case, does anyone want to make any more comments? Or all right, Dean, you want to go ahead with your updates?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I just wanted to finish the second note because I think there are really
Okay.
two related retrans issues. One is this funding, and then the other is this issue with, if it's in the state right of way, then the state agency of transportation claims the phosphorus credits because of their stormwater permit. But anyway, that note is complete, so I'm all ready in just a second to resume. Okay, so updates. I was really just gonna go through a couple of things. One is that I don't know how many folks get the newsletter that's issued by the Watershed Planning Program. I know another one came out, I believe it was yesterday, maybe Monday. I just did a screenshot of basically the contents page for that newsletter, and I wanted to just highlight a couple of things. There is something that I had already planned to give you a little presentation on, or mention, that's included in the newsletter, which is the so-called action plan that DEC is working on. There's also on this list news about the FFI tool training that I had somehow missed, that there was a training scheduled for, I believe, the 30th. I don't know how I missed that, but I have expressed interest in the past, but it was scheduled. And then the news now is that it's going to be a 2-hour Zoom session. But if you get that newsletter, I know I don't always read these newsletters or get through them, or I miss things, but if you're interested in the FFI tool, it has the link so that you can see that what it will now be a Teams presentation rather than any kind of in-person. That's the page 5 topic. And then the page 6 topic, which is the draft Clean Water Action Plan. And I just had anticipated giving you some information about that. There's an overview in the newsletter, but I was just going to share, I'm going to use my notes because I couldn't keep it all in my head. It is a response by DEC to the concerns that have been raised by a lot of different participants in this process. They recognize that there needs to be more, there need to be changes made so that we can more effectively meet clean water goals and more efficiently meet them. And this document, this plan, really, well, they identified clean water service providers, basin councils, project implementers, and other stakeholders as the folks who've contributed ideas that they're hoping to take into account as they created this plan. It's got 2 phases. The way I look at this document is that if you do open it up, go straight to the tables because that's where the meat of it is. And it's basically 2 tables, and they have the phase 1 table, so called, where they have a list of things that they say they are already doing that are in response to many of the issues that are raised. And then phase 2, which are the things that are more future oriented or future work. Anyway, that's the overview that I was going to give about that document. I won't bother you to burden you with more details than that. I could answer questions, but I don't know if there are any about that. And if there aren't, then I think we're almost at the conclusion stage.
Dean, when is the FFI tool presentation?
So I will pull that up. I believe it is from 10 to noon next Thursday. I'm going to just confirm that. FFI tool training from 10 to noon Thursday, and I am going to paste and it has its topic is going to, or its subject matter is going to include process calculations. This is just part of the so anyway, these are the links. So this is the link that will get you into that. There is more that is that I didn't include in the cutting portion of this. That if you can't get to the newsletter, let me know and I can send that to you separately.
Dean, if you wouldn't mind forwarding that to me, I would appreciate it.
Okay, I'm gonna make sure that I forward that whole email that has the newsletter in it to the group. That's gonna be the thing I do. Okay. Any other questions on that?
Dean, I just have a general question when you're ready.
Sure. Yeah,
So,
I'm not gonna attempt to email it to the group this
No,
second.
no.
So I just got the reminder to make sure I do it.
I know Megan's not going to talk about the project that was discussed at the last meeting, but my question is there a protocol in place to look at projects that are that have been half accomplished by other funds and then just stepping into our program with all the existing data that was done from other sources? You know what I'm trying to say?
I can take a shot at it. I think I understand at least part of it, and there is nothing that I would call a formal protocol, but we have learned a lot since the beginning days of this, and what we've learned includes the need for asking more questions or raising more questions for those types of projects that you just described, projects that have come to the BWICS looking for funds, and a lot of work has already been done by other funding sources. And those funding sources might not have required the project sponsors to look at certain things that the formula fund process requires to be examined early. And because those projects come from they come from sort of further afield, we will need to, like I say, ask more questions when we are reviewing those. There haven't been a lot of them, but the projects that come in a little bit later, I would say they do encounter some headwinds that a project that's coming through from the beginning, those other projects don't have those headwinds. But do you want to
Right.
call? Do you want a protocol or
Well, I just, you know, it skews the P reduction numbers because there's been all this money spent in the beginning, or not, I don't want to say in the beginning. There's been all this, you know, work done, but none of that is being calculated in the cost per kilogram, right?
Well, I guess I would say it's not something like we like to say, but it depends. It's possible that some of those costs would be considered, and it's possible that some of those costs wouldn't be considered depending on where the money came from. I think that's the simple way of putting it. But
Okay.
it makes things more complex, like you say,
Hmm.
and that's part of the asking additional questions that would occur for these projects that are coming from away.
Okay. Thank you.
Peter, do you see Megan? Oh, Peter's not back yet. Oh, or is he back?
No, I'm back. No, Megan, go ahead.
I guess it's the whole process and challenge with the Dorothy Smith project and having, you know, less than desirable P reduction. Just, I don't know, it made me thinking like consistency again. Do we need to set some kind of bottom line threshold of how low are we going to accept for P reduction for projects? You know, because we have to be consistent with how we make decisions. We can't just, you know, say, oh, well, you really need to consider a partial award because your P reduction is not good enough to one person and then accept the next application. I don't know, maybe we should consider some kind of bottom threshold because otherwise I feel like we're just not being consistent. Just gonna put that out there. It would be helpful, I guess, or some kind of recommendation, maybe like in the application that we put out for quiz funds to say, hey, if your project's below this phosphorus reduction threshold, then you may only be considered for a partial award. And by the way, you can't match it with this funding source, that funding source, that funding source. Like there just needs to be more clarity about that. I'm sorry, I can see Lauren laughing. There needs to be more clarity about that from the get-go, even in the application itself. You know, and then we just need to be consistent at the end of the day with our decisions. That's all.
Megan, I don't know if this is in alignment with what you're thinking, but I think part of the issue is this false narrative that the BWICs actually have any project approval power, where that really is, it's a number game. It doesn't, I guess I'm feeling like it's a numbers game. I don't know if that's how others are feeling, but it doesn't feel to me like this group gets to decide what's a valuable project to fund. It really just comes down to that P number, which I think is particularly problematic because we still have limited methodologies for how to fund P projects. And I'll stop there. And I know I've said this before, so I'm sorry I'm beating the same drum, but this process is feeling really hard and problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll go. Yeah, I mean, Lauren, I agree and I disagree. I mean, I think like you're right. Like it always comes down to that number, which is very frustrating. I think that the book does have like some discretion in terms of like in some cases maybe we take a less efficient project, and in some cases because we have like a very efficient project in other cases, right, where it doesn't cost a lot of money to mitigate a lot of phosphorus. I know that's happened in other basin councils that I'm involved with, but I agree that it ultimately just comes down to the number and like whether we can swing it Yeah.
Megan?
Okay, this is the last thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet. Related to that, I think Dean wants to avoid this too. I would just like to see us avoid these situations where the council may approve one thing, but then the executive staff of the quiz come back to the applicant and say, no, we're not going to approve that. I just want to avoid those situations altogether. So if having some very, very baseline P reduction threshold is the way to avoid that and be very transparent about that, that's one way to approach that.
Okay, then. Dean, you have more updates?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I mean, if there's any further comment, I think we're near the end of the meeting, correct? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, I just was going to point out the next meeting is scheduled for March 27. Next funding rounds are shown on the screen. February 6th is when round 7 opens with the deadline of March 13, and round 8 deadline is going to be May 8th.
Dean, can I just ask, the deadlines, I finally found them on your website and they're under the RFP thing for the whole NRPC. I'm wondering if there could be a more direct place on the QUISP pages where those dates are also listed.
Yeah, I thought yes is the short answer. I thought there was, but let me check. I know that there were some tweaks done, and I don't know if that is something that somehow got inadvertently cut, but let me make sure that that happens.
All right.
Sorry, so sorry.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Did we ever solve the issue of the alternates being for the whole pool or being for one specific person? That was part of the issue last time.
If I may, Peter, I think we've made progress because we have multiple alternates for several of the positions, and they're from more than one organization, which helps in those cases. Now, is it 100%? I'm not sure. I haven't double checked that, but I know, for example, in the case of Aaron's absence, we have one rep who's from the Vermont Land Trust and one also Remy, who's from the same organization. And when I talked with Aaron, she wanted to just confirm that Remy acting in her stead was possible. And I said, yes, because the Vermont River Conservancy is not an applicant. And that's when we would have to get the Vermont Land Trust. So we have done some of the things that we need to do. I don't know if it's 100%. And at least in this case, it worked as it was meant to work.
Okay. Yeah, I guess.
And
I'm
also,
thinking...
oh, sorry. And Dan has been added. So there are 2 different, conservation districts, but not the same one. So it wouldn't be, a conflict for the second organization.
Okay, so I guess are we still at a place where so Peter and I are both the actual seats, and if I'm not there, Dan could serve for me, but if Peter's not here, could Dan serve for Peter?
Well, Emily serves for me.
Right, let's say Emily can't come, but Dan can.
Okay.
I guess I'm just wondering, have we figured out if that is okay?
It would be if Dan is seated as a second alternate and there's no limit on the number of alternates for a position. And I just off the top of my head don't know whether or not that was that happened. I did double check because I know that Dan and Mel are both listed as alternates for you. That much I remember, but I
Okay.
can't remember whether or not it also happened with Peter. It may
Okay.
have, but I'm not sure.
Thanks.
And it's a relatively simple thing to fix if it hasn't. Yeah,
All
right
right.
now, as far as membership, the thing I would say that's going to be, you know, a priority or should be is finding a representative of a watershed organization to fill one of the baseline positions, the rep positions. Since Kent has stepped away, we have a vacancy, and I know Peter, Lynn, and I have had some meetings trying to find a representative. There is some gesture, some would say, in guidance that gives WOV a role in really setting that. But the rule does say that if there isn't someone chosen, that we can, as a quiz, appoint someone. And I really do hope we manage to find someone, because I really don't like having a seat just empty. Absolutely empty. So that to me, again, is really the priority.
Yeah, I still haven't heard back from Aaron, but I'll try calling him again or emailing him. Just get it together. All right, how are we doing, Dean? You got anything else for us?
I do not.
Okay, anyone else have anything they want to bring up before I ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Peter, I just have one more clarification on this alternate thing.
Yeah.
If a group bows out because, or if a group bows out because of conflict of interest, does that mean their alternate is bowing out? You know what I'm trying to ask?
Unless, right, the alternate is representing the same organization.
Right.
That's
Correct.
you know, I think they wouldn't have to bow out, right, Dean?
Correct. Yeah. It's not a domino. It's only a domino if they're from the same organization,
Right.
because they would have the same conflict.
Right.
So the alternate would have to bow out then, if from the same group.
From the same group. And that's
Yeah,
why that's why we were saying earlier that, like in the case of the conservation districts, they're active in this sphere. So we want to make sure that the alternates include at least one person who's from the conservation district that's a different district. And so Dan being from a different district, different from Lauren, is immensely useful as an alternate, because if Lauren has an application, Dan doesn't have to recuse himself. Mel would, because she works for the same organization Lauren does, but Dan works for a different organization and he doesn't have that conflict.
Got it.
I move to adjourn.
All right, Brad, hear a motion to adjourn from Brad. Do I hear a second?
I can second it. Go ahead.
All right, Ken, thank you. All in favor of adjourning this meeting today, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Have a really good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Stay well.
Thank you.
And
Feel better.
you should
Nice to
have
be
that
with you
email.
all. Thank you.
Have a
Thanks.
good week.